So we're gonna get going, I guess. I'm very excited about, very excited about this week's episode of, I don't know what you want to call it.
Chef's Cooking Class.
Chef Loseto's
online cooking.
Secret lessons. My beard is coming in nicely, I must admit. And we're in Sean's secret corner here. It's the best spot in the whole kitchen. Sean doesn't like to share it. One time, about 5 years ago, I wanted to move pastry downstairs. Well, Sean wasn't very happy. So Sean stays, and we're going to sneak into his corner because he's not here. We're all by ourselves, and we're going to do some pizza. So very excited to do pizza. Obviously, being Italian, I know a few things. And I'm going to try to share all the little rules, because there's a lot of rules when it comes to pizza and pasta in Italy a lot of times. As you get older, you realize some of those rules make a lot of sense, so we'll try to go through them all. But we're going to make three pieces. We're going to make all the same dough, so we're doing a Neapolitan dough, which is usually, it's the one that's sort of been in fashion the last few years. So a little bit charred, kind of chewy, kind of soft, and I'm going to show you how to do it at home, which is I'm very excited about because it's kind of hard to get that char at home, and most of us maybe have a convection oven. We don't have an outside pizza oven, although they are more common. So we have 2 convection ovens. I'm going to use those convection ovens, and we're going to cook them on trays. And the dough's going to come out fat and fast. Like, it's really, really good. I'm so excited. So first, we're going to start with the dough. So the dough is quite easy to make. And once you add this dough, if it goes, I'm assuming it's going to go perfectly well this lesson, it'll be very hard to buy. It'll be very hard to buy just the stuff that you get. The stuff that you get from the supermarket, unless it's a really specialized bakery, most of the time it's just flour, water, yeast mixed together, very soft, no bite, no strength to it. So we'll start with the dough. So for the dough, the first part is you're going to mix. We're having some camera issues, so you're not going to be able to see in the bowl, but I'll try the best I can to clarify. And again, you guys are on mute, so I can't hear you. But if you type in any questions, then we're going to get some help translating that to me, and then I'll answer your questions, okay? So there's going to be a point in time where I'm going to be kneading the dough for about 8 minutes. So you're going to have 8 minutes worth of questions, anything you want. If you also have any suggestions for next week, that'd be great, but we'll do that once I'm kneading the dough for 8 minutes. Okay, so the first part, there's 2 parts to this recipe. So the first part is you take water. Now here's what I found out yesterday. These are our liter containers. They're not actually a liter. That's a liter. It's kind of interesting because I never knew that. We've been using them for so long. So you want to put a liter of water, room temperature. Into a bowl. All right, we're going to try to stay clean as much as we can. Then you got yeast, dry yeast, active dry yeast. You can use fresh. If you're using fresh, you need more of it. There is an exact measurement, like as far as switching it over to fresh, but most people just do about double, a little less than double. But dry yeast, I'm using dry yeast. The whole point of this dough, usually for the Neapolitan dough, they use fresh yeast, but the whole point of this dough is dry yeast is more common, so we're going to use dry yeast. So room temperature water, yeast, and sugar. Sugar will start getting it going.
Question from Mary, how much dry yeast?
Oh, the recipe should, I sent the recipe over, so you should have the recipe.
You can plug it or post it after.
But we're going to post it after, so I didn't know you didn't have it, so I will say the measurements. So we have a liter of water, 10 grams of sugar, and 5 grams of dry yeast. All right, so I happen to have a glove. I don't like making doughs with gloves because it's sort of a nice thing to do with your hands. I don't even like using machines unless there's so much of it. But the glove comes in handy here because the first part of it, the dough's going to stay a little bit wet. So the flour is a kilo and a half, but you're only going to put a kilo first. You're going to put that first, you're going to mix it, you're going to knead it just like for a couple of minutes, then you let it sit for an hour. So you're using bread flour. You can use bread flour, you can use double O flour, which is a bit more of a specialized flour, but I've made this with bread flour and it's amazing. So we're just going to add that to the water all at once. Right, and this is when you get your hands dirty. Right, you want to make sure when you wear a glove that the glove's tight fitting. Because there's nothing worse than mixing dough with a loose glove because the glove just falls off. right, so what I like about this I mean, last week's lesson was close to home as well, because we would make, as an Italian, we would make the bone broth and the egg jog broth and everything. And we did have a record turnout, apparently. So hopefully we can build on that. This especially, like, who doesn't like pizza, right? And you can make it like with cheese, without cheese, different types of toppings, everything. So it's like, it's very exciting. You can do it at home. You can do it, grill it on your barbecue. You can put it on a pizza oven. You just want to mix that, right? Try not to spill it everywhere. Right, and you can see it's sort of wet, so you want to just sort of stir it. You want to sort of squeeze it with your hands, and you want to do that for about maybe 3 minutes. Right, builds your muscles as well. So we're going to make 3 pizzas from one dough. We're going to make like a focaccia with just fresh tomato and Parmesan cheese, nothing really else on it other than a little bit of olive oil. We're going to make your standard Neapolitan sort of, this is the only pizza in the world, pizza where it's just cheese, tomato sauce, and fresh basil. And if you put anything else, they sort of get mad at you. So we're going to do that one, the traditional one. And we're going to make something with toppings. So we're going to do mozzarella cheese and some toppings, because there is a trick. You can't just throw this in your oven. There is a little bit of a trick to it. It even made my brother look good, so he thanked me. But so anyway, so we have the dough. You can see, I don't know if you can see it, but it's fairly wet. So now what you do is you cover it. So to cover it, what I would recommend, either saran wrap, or what I like to use is a bag, just so you can reuse the bag after. Right, so you want to just wrap it like that. Right, and then not a knot, so you can untie it. All right. Okay, so now, while this is sitting, I have another one ready to go. But while that's sitting, we're going to go and make the sauce. Now, the sauce is very key. So, very key. It's like, other than the dough, it's something that is very, almost more important than the cheese. Because if you have just sauce and a good dough, a little olive oil, it will still be great. So, the misconception is that you can use any tomato. So, I've been to restaurants in the summer. Not necessarily pizza places, specialized pizza places, but just restaurants, whether it be in Niagara or wherever, in good places. And it'd be like, this is a sauce we made from the harvest of the tomatoes, with all the heirloom tomatoes. But the thing is, it doesn't matter, unless it's an heirloom, like saran, which is the tomatoes you're supposed to use, then the tomatoes are too sour, right? So you have to use the right tomatoes to make the sauce. So a lot of people, including my wife, they don't like canned tomatoes. They're like, oh, it's canned tomatoes. But unless you're jarring it yourself, the canned tomatoes are the best. The only exception would be if you had proper San in the summer, and they grow them in Ontario. You can get them in the markets. Really, really ripe. You sort of blanch them, you peel them, and then you can use those for the sauce. But if you don't, then a good canned tomato. So what's a good canned tomato? Well, there's thousands of varieties. So, I mean, you can choose to try as many as you want. But if you're sort of not sure, you're not sure of the brand, or you don't have one that you continually go to, try to use a DOP, which is especially, it's a specialized tomato grown from a certain region, made with a certain quality, and you can get DOP tomatoes, olive oil, you can get sort of all sorts of that stuff, and you can almost guarantee that it's proper. Now, like, of course, like anything, you might choose the wrong one, but usually if you look for the DOP distinction, you're going to be in good shape. And then from there, if you want to switch it to something else, you can go from there. This has basil in it, and they're whole. That's ideally what you would want. The basil really, in the end, doesn't taste like much, so you add more basil. So we're going to get rid of that. So the recipe that I'm going to give you is for this giant can of tomatoes. So what I do is I do the can of tomatoes, and then I divide it up and I freeze it. You can use it for whatever, but you can even use it after you freeze it. You can always use it to make the base for a tomato sauce. But so I usually do the large can, but you can get the small can. It's fine. We're just gonna get rid of that. Okay, so now the tomatoes. You have to do one thing to them. You gotta take them out of the jar can. Right? You get a bucket like this. These are tomatoes that I haven't done anything to. It's the same tomatoes, it's just I set them aside so I can show you. So the one thing you have to do is you have to take the eye out. So the eye is where the tomato touches the vine, or the vine part. So essentially, if you're looking at this tomato, right? You want to take this part out. So by doing that, it's very easy. You just take it, you have a bowl, and you just pull it. You grab it, grab a hold of it, and you pull it. And you can see this comes out. I'm not sure if you can see. It's kind of hard. But sort of the eye part comes out. Now obviously I've been on seeing what everybody else is doing as well, and some people just take it and buzz it, which is fine. It's not going to hurt anybody. But I just remember my father, like if you would ever find this in a restaurant, or if we were at home and find it, it would be the end of the world. It meant that whoever made it didn't know what they were doing. So we want to take those out.
Can you repeat the type of tomato you're using?
Okay, so these are DOP tin tomatoes, whole tomatoes, which is to make the DOP tomatoes, they're san matsan. So there's a specific tomato. So I was saying in my story, so we go to this restaurant, and it's like, these are the sauce I made from a harvest of the heirloom tomatoes. So we have this pizza, and it's so sour. It's like so sour. It's like you cannot use any tomato to make it, unfortunately. I mean, if you want to do fresh tomatoes on top, or you want to, maybe you have another sweet tomato and you want to do a different type of pizza, but if you're doing a traditional Italian pizza, you want to use san matsan tomatoes as the base. Or else it'd be better just to do a white pizza. All right, so you just do that, nice and easy. Okay. Are you going to get some juice that comes out when you do it? You want to put that juice back in. So we did them all, right? And then you want to just put that juice back in, right? And then all you're left with is the ends, right? And then put the juice back in. Now this doesn't necessarily mean it's garbage. You can save it and put it into a bone broth, for example, or you can into anything else you're sort of braising or anything. Right, so we're going to get rid of this, and we're going to wash our hands.
We will be posting the video and all the ingredients that Chef is using on the member site, and we'll have that link in Verity Vibes on Monday.
Yeah, we have. I actually do have the recipe, so I'm organized on that. So, sauce. So this is what you do. Take it. Hand blender or a blender, and you just buzz it. Now, before you buzz it, right, the misconception is that you cook. I mean, I'm sure there's regions in Italy that cook their tomato sauce. We don't cook our tomato sauce. I'm from Puglia, which is the south. This is a Neapolitan pizza. They don't generally cook their tomato sauce either. Now, technically, it's sort of cooked because I guess to take the skins off, they're sort of blanched and preserved. But you don't make a tomato sauce that's for a pasta, right, and put it onto a pizza. That's technically wrong. Even though you could do it, I'm sure it'll taste delicious, it's technically wrong. So into this, we're going to add some stuff. So we're going to add a little bit of black pepper, which when you get the recipe, is not in the recipe. You're going to add a little bit of black pepper, not too much, you don't want to overuse it. You're going to add some salt, a couple of pinches. Right, usually the tin tomatoes, you would be careful because some of them are salted already, so you want to be careful with the salt. You can add a little bit of fresh basil, but if we're going to add it onto the plate, we're going to add a little olive oil. Just a little olive oil, you don't want to make it too greasy. Okay, so now, one thing you don't add is garlic. I like a little garlic. So in this whole tin of tomatoes, I think it's 1.9 liters or 1.9 kilograms, whatever. You basically put, these are roasted garlic. I roasted them in the oven whole. And basically you want to put one or two at the most inside. Now, technically it's not supposed to be in there. I just like a little garlic in it. So you put it in there, you roast them whole, you put a couple, and no more. You don't want to taste the garlic. If you go to a restaurant, you're tasting the massive amount of garlic in the pizza sauce, it's not. So you just want to buzz it. And you just want to break the tomatoes a little bit. Right, and that's it. That's all it is. That's pizza sauce. Like I said, we want to add a little bit of basil, but we're going to add it later. So that's all it is. So some of these restaurants, when you go, it's almost more tomato sauce than cheese, which is another thing, which we'll get to when we make the pizzas. So sauce is done. All right, now we're going to take the dough that I made before I showed you, and we're going to finish it. So this is when the questions come in, because I'm going to be here a while. All right, so we grab everything. All right, so here's the bag. I'm going to reuse it. All right, you're going to need some space. You're going to need a clean surface, because we're going to knead this for about 8 minutes. All right, so first thing we do is we take this, right? We have salt, 40 grams of salt. So with the 40 grams of salt, it's actually a little less than what the recipe called for originally. It called for 50 grams of salt, but that's way too much salt. And then what the salt does, it's going to bring everything, it's going to sort of help with the gluten part of it. It's going to make it sort of hold itself when you're stretching it. So you have salt, you have a good quality olive oil, 50 grams. Right, and then you have flour. Now I'm just going to mix it in a little bit with the spoon first, and then flip it over, just so that it doesn't go all over my hands, and I don't want to wear gloves. So we're going to put that in. So it's another 500 grams. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to use my hands. It's fine. Okay, so you just want to mix that a little bit. You can see the dough already after it sits an hour. I don't know, that's the dough underneath it. It sort of starts to rise a little bit, and the texture is nice and smooth and soft. It's not really that sticky anymore. All right, so you just want to mix it a little bit before you throw it onto your board or onto your work surface. Right, and then you want to get it onto the work surface. Now, the key thing is to remember when you're making something, unless you've really, really messed up on the measurements, which can happen, you always try not to add anything to it. So when you first start mixing this dough, right, it's kind of dry. But then when you start mixing it more, it becomes kind of wet. Don't be tempted, like even if your board becomes kind of sticky, just try to keep it into one spot. And eventually it'll come together and it'll be a great dough. So if it becomes really sticky, and you start adding flour, you're going to ruin the dough. So you can start with 2 hands as well. Okay, so now here comes the questions. Does anybody have a question? Does anybody have an idea of what you might want to learn next week? I was thinking either pasta, or maybe I can sous vide some, I don't know if anybody's ever sous vide, but like I have some good recipes for sous vide fish or eggs actually. Have you ever had a poached egg that's been sous vide? It's the easiest thing in the world. You'll never over poach it, never. And it's delicious.
If you do have any questions, please type them in the chat. Marion says therapeutic meeting.
Yeah, it's actually kind of a workout. For those of you guys that are, I guess a lot of people are making bread because there's no flour or yeast anywhere in the markets. And it'll be kind of a workout sometimes.
Here's a suggestion for you. Carbona bolognese.
Carbonara or bolognese.
Bolognese.
I actually have
or miso popcorn.
the miso popcorn. That one's complicated, but we can try. For the miso popcorn, it involves dehydrating. It's actually harder than it looks because it involves dehydrating miso. Dehydrating miso and dehydrating sunchoke peels. Sunchoke peels I won't have because they're out of season. And the miso, so that'll be a little more complicated. So it seems really simple, but we wanted to, when we started the miso popcorn, believe it or not, that miso popcorn was like almost 2 years in the works.
I think the members miss it in the club.
Yeah, the miso popcorn was like 2 years. So we were approached with doing some popcorn, but we had some ideas to pop it on the spot, and different flavorings and stuff, and we were having trouble getting the flavorings to sort of stay. And then we finally developed the miso powder that's on it right now, but it involves dehydrating a bunch of things in our dehydrator downstairs, and then buzzing it all up, and then popping it, and then going in there from there. What's that? Bolognese we can do. That's a really good one actually. But I have in a week or two, I have something on Instagram, the George Instagram page, where I make lasagna at home. I don't make the bolognese because the Instagram can't be that long. So you can see it's starting to get sticky now, right? But at this point, don't panic, don't add any more flour, right? And the best part about this is you can take it, and when you're making bread, you can actually slam it. So not only are you getting a workout, every once in a while you can slam it. It's the funnest thing ever. Freaks out my wife while I'm making bread at home. Anyway, so I made lasagna, bolognese lasagna, so I'll show you how to roll the dough and everything, and sort of put it together. And that's going to come out on Instagram. I filmed it a couple of weeks ago. My daughter's helping me edit it, and it should come out on Instagram in the next week or so. But we can always do it again.
So be sure you're following George on Instagram at George on Queen.
And then what was the other one? Was bolognese or carbonara.
Yeah.
Carbonara is a good one too. So what I can do is I can show you how to make the pasta at home, and then maybe do like a quick carbonara or something, because that's pretty easy.
Some creative egg recipes, egg dishes.
Rather than sous videing it, I can think of a creative egg recipe for sure. I'm not a big egg kind of brunch guy, but we can try to look at something. The pasta would be good because I think once you have pasta made by you make your own pasta, I don't think you'll ever, it's hard to buy pasta. It's hard to use dry. And then I have this, someone suggested actually Porzetti. I think it was Porzetti. It's a hand stamp. I got these stamps made in Italy, in Florence, and basically it's a stamped pasta. So we can maybe do something traditional like that. That'll be good too.
They like the Verity cracked bread.
The flatbread?
Cracked bread.
I don't like it calling it cracked. Just a little inside tip. I don't like calling it cracked. But it's been sort of name given to it, so that's fine. The flatbread is you want to do the flatbread. The flatbread's easy. All it involves is a little patience. If you have patience, then it's fine. We can do the flatbread. That'll be a good one. Yeah. And it's like you're just gonna see me roll, so we might have to combine it with something.
Gnocchi.
Gnocchi's a good one. Gnocchi's a good one too, because it's one of that and beignets are one of the two things that started the club, and it started the club, and it's never been off the menu. The beignets and the gnocchi. I want to take the gnocchi off, and then it's just like I'm told I can't. So
I always mispronounce that.
I was actually thinking of doing nudi instead. I don't know if anybody's had nudi. Basically, it's ravioli, similar to a gnocchi, but it's essentially a ravioli. It's a stuffing of a ravioli without the ravioli. So I'll keep going. It is a workout. You can use both hands, but you can see now, like where I'm rolling it, it's not sticky anymore. It's not floury anymore. You got flour everywhere. You got to be careful. That doesn't go all over your floor. So essentially, we're going to stop there because I can go. It probably needs about 4. I don't know how long I've been kneading it, but it probably needs a little bit more. But I have dough ready resting. So once you do that, you can see it start taking shape. The more you work it, the stronger it's going to be, and the stronger you're going to be, and then it's going to make a delicious dough. So that, once you make it, okay, here's the best part about this dough. So you make it, then it needs to sit for an hour. Well, actually, I have to show you how to roll it. So I guess I can finish it. But you know what? I think we're okay. So we'll put this away. You're going to take a bowl, and you're going to let it sit for about an hour. Right, a little olive oil in the bowl, and then you're just going to roll it in that olive oil. Right, and then you take the bag wherever I put it. Put it over here. I'm sorry. When you're baking, it's hard to forget steps. If you forget a step, it throws everything up. I was making baguettes at home, and I forgot to put a proof that on room temperature. It was supposed to be in the fridge. It just ruins it. One mistake, that's all it takes. But luckily, this is not that hard. So anyway, so we're gonna roll it in olive oil, and then we let that sit for 1 hour, and then you're gonna shape it. After you shape it, you let it rest for about 6 to 8 hours, and here's the good part about the dough. So after 6 or 8 hours, if you don't need it, you just leave it. It'll hold up to 2 days in your fridge. All right, so we're gonna let that sit for an hour. We're actually gonna let that sit for less, and I'm gonna cut it and show you how to shape it. So we'll just let it sit a little bit so it doesn't bounce back. Okay, so in the meantime, we're gonna go through the pizza, what we're putting on the pizza. So we have some vine tomatoes. I have a little flour on my hands, but we'll get rid of that in a sec. So vine tomatoes. We have some mozzarella cheese. Now the mozzarella cheese is just gonna be a good quality, full fat mozzarella, ideally. We have some bocconcini cheese, which are delicious. A few fancy mushrooms. Some beautiful fresh basil for this time of year. Some sausage, some prosciutto, a little bit of parm, and some arugula. Okay, so the other thing to remember when you're making pizza, the other sort of major rule is unless you're making a white pizza, you don't put Parmesan on it. If you put Parmesan on it, people freak out. Italians freak out for whatever reason. I mean, I like a little parm, I'll take parm. I'll like a little parm, I'll take parm on anything, but people do freak out. Okay, so we have the sauce, we have the toppings, and you know what we're going to do? We're going to make the pizza with the dough I have rolled, and by the end of it, I'll take the dough that I just made, and I'll shape it just so you see what the shape is, how to shape it. In the meantime, we'll make the pizza so that way it rests a little bit. If you try to roll it without making it rest for an hour, what happens is it just bounces back, and the texture's going to be all wrong. All right, so I'll show you the dough that I have. Okay, so unfortunately this has saran wrap. I should have put it back.
Cool. When you're holding stuff, just hold it a little higher.
Okay, so I gotta hold it a little higher.
Yeah.
So this is the dough right here. Now, if for some reason you want to reduce the salt, you'll see that this will run a little bit more, just a little bit more, just because there's less salt in it. It's not as strong. But you sort of leave it in flour, and you can leave it covered as long as it doesn't get. As long as it doesn't get a skin on it, you leave it covered. You can leave it in there for a day or two, and it'll hold. The dough has so much body that you're fine. Right? So even though it seems a bit of work, you have a little bit. You can make it on Wednesday or Thursday and use it on the weekend. Okay, so now we're gonna do 3 pizzas, like I said. So we have just flour, straight up flour. You're gonna take the dough, put it right in the flour. So I don't know if you can see. You can't see, but essentially it's a bowl of flour, bread flour. I'm going to rest it right in there. Right. And then while you're doing that, you want to keep the dough that you're now using sort of covered. You don't want it skin on it. Right. We have trays. We have 3 trays. These trays have nothing on them, and we're going to put nothing on them. Sometimes I like to put olive oil, but there's nothing on them. If you don't have these small trays, you can just put it on a sheet pan and just put them individually on the sheet pan. When the trays are cold, perfectly fine. The oven is at 500 degrees, 525 degrees Fahrenheit, convect. Actually, we can probably put 500. I'll show lower it a little bit. Okay, so I just put it at 500 degree convect. If you don't have a convection oven, then maybe a little higher would be good, like 525 would be good. All right, so straight up, okay? Now the dough, you don't really need a rolling pin. I mean, you can use one if you want. You just need your hands, and it should stretch, if I did it correctly. So you just want to, so the idea would be that you want to develop the crust, the sort of traditional sort of signature crust on the pizzas. So the inside is nice and thin, and the outside has this nice sort of, and that crust gets nice and charred. Now don't be fooled, if you've ever been to a restaurant and it's completely burnt, they're going to tell you that it's supposed to be charred, but it's not. It can be a little bit black, but when the whole thing is black, which has happened before, and they're like, no, that's the way we do it. I don't know what that is to eat charcoal. But you want it a little bit charred. Unfortunately, we can only get so much char on this oven, but you'll get a nice dark sort of crispy crust for sure. So you want to just work it like this with your hands, right? And you want to put it down, right? And you want to push. You want to push it. Right? And you can see how strong the dough is. Like I can hold it with my 2 fingers, just like I'm holding it straight up. Right? And you can just stretch it. Don't be worried if you get spots that are a little thinner. You're perfectly fine. Okay, so we're just going to let that sit a little bit. Now you want the other thing to try to remember, if you forget the sign, the top of the dough, how you put it into the fridge. So the way you put it into the fridge, the top part of it, you want to keep it the top part when you bake the pizza. You don't want to reverse it. So the bottom part stays the bottom. If you get confused, it's not the end of the world, but it just chars better. So just want to keep going with that. So I have 3 of them. Does anybody have any questions?
Could I also cook these on the barbecue?
Yeah, so I've been trying different pizza doughs. Usually, like if we're open, I'll have I'll have a little bit of focaccia that we use here. I'll take that a little bit home and stuff because I don't have time I'm working all the time, so you want to make a little bit of pizza. But I've been trying some different doughs, and this one's my favorite, so I made it like 2-3 times. So we've had pizza quite a bit, and I brought some home the other day, and I didn't want to make pizza again, so I threw it on the barbecue, and I ate it with like grilled chicken satay and some fresh tomato, chickpeas. Sort of made like a little sort of naan, like the naan that we do here, and it's really good. It comes out really good. So I just want to roll these properly. So you're gonna have a little bit of patience. Now I took this dough right from the fridge, so you want to take it right from the fridge and roll it out. You don't want to let it sit too out.
Is the dough divided into 6 portions?
Okay, so the dough will make 10 balls of 240 grams, which is quite big. The recipe itself said you make 7 at 250, but it doesn't make sense. So all the 3 times I've made it, I've gone 10 at 240 grams, which is a lot of dough. Like you can make it even a little smaller, so you could probably get 20, make a little smaller pizzas. So you're gonna get like an 11-inch pizza here.
Can you freeze extra dough?
You can, yeah. It doesn't become as nice, but you can. It just won't be as nice. Okay, so you can also take a rolling pin if you sort of get that up. The only problem is that what happens with the rolling pin, then you don't have the fat end of it. So we almost have one ready. Okay, so we're going to do this. So you can see, you basically have to fill the sheet pan. So we have a little bit of it. Thing is, I don't know, like a lot of times you want to, like the tomato sauce is one thing if you label it. With the dough, you sort of forget about it. And then when you try to use it, it has to come up to temperature, and then you have to sort of like, you can't really use it right out of the freezer straight up. So it makes it a little challenging for sure. Okay, so I think this one's ready. We'll try this one. Okay, so what we're going to do, the method for this to do it at home, is you're going to put the sauce on first, just the sauce. A little olive oil, a little sauce, and that's it. And then once it's almost ready, you take it out, and we're going to finish it. That's the one with the sauce. The straight up, you can also stretch it a little bit. The one that has no sauce on it, We're gonna put straight up. We're gonna put everything we want on it, and we're gonna bake it straight up like a focaccia. Okay, so one more, almost there, almost. Just gonna try to stretch it a little faster. It's sort of really weird in here being by yourself. Usually there's, I don't know if I mentioned last week, usually there's like 30 cooks. It's kind of nice to work in this corner though.
We had another suggestion of tempeh.
Tempeh?
Yeah.
Tempeh? Wow. The thing is with tempeh, like, it would be nice to make it from scratch. I don't know how exciting it is. I guess you could do a tempeh recipe. I don't know if it's as exciting. Like, it'd be nice to sort of make it from scratch. I've never really made tempeh and tofu from scratch. I know you can, but maybe I can add that to my list to try. Okay, so here we go. So we're gonna start. So you can see as it's sort of warming up a little bit, it's stretching a little easier, but you can sort of see how strong that is. Okay, so you're gonna add a little flour to the tray, right? And we're gonna do the tomato sauce ones first. Right, what you don't want is you want the crust on it, but you don't want the middle part really thick. That's one. Now you can roll these as thin as you want, but usually 240 grams, 11-inch is probably good. I'm more of a thin type pizza guy though, so it's weird because usually it doesn't stretch back. So okay, so I'm gonna go with that.
Is the dough shrinking after you place it on the plate?
A little bit, but I'm also trying to rush it a little bit. So ideally, like if I was here by myself, I'd have more time just to sort of pinch it properly. So I'm feeling like I'm boring you guys, so I'm trying to like just rush it a little bit.
What causes it to shrink?
Well, there's a lot of things that can cause it to shrink. Like obviously it's a strong dough, so it's just harder to roll out, right? And then you need to rest, right? So if I'm when I made that dough, like you just saw, I made the dough. If I try to roll that right away, it's too soon, so it shrinks back, like it fights it back, like it needs to relax, right? So as I'm rolling this from the ball shape, it's not really relaxing. It's like I'm forcing it. So you would need to, if anything, like if you had like say 20 of these, or like 6 of these or whatever, you can sort of like let it rest a little bit. You can sort of feel it changing in your hands. Like as I'm making these right now, I can sort of feel it sort of relaxing and being able to stretch more. Also too, like if you start rolling it too soon, so maybe I need another hour to sort of sit. The amount of salt in it can affect it. So with less salt, it'll be easier to stretch. The salt really sort of really works the sort of gluten. But we're almost there. Then after that, well, I mean, I'll have a lot of pizzas to eat with no one here, so I don't know what I'm going to do with them. But we'll go from there. Okay, so I think that's good. So we're going to start with sauce. We're going to grab a spoon, and usually with the this type of pizza, you're quite generous with the sauce. Also, too, when you go to bake it, it's going to get dry a little bit. All right, and we're not going to add the basil now. We don't want to kill it. So we're quite generous. You stay away from the couple of things. You stay away from the ends because you want it to char the ends, and you don't spill it out to the tray, and you'll be good. All right. So we're gonna put that in the oven. Okay. So it should take Should take about 5 minutes in the oven, I'm guessing, of course. Okay, we're just gonna clean up a little bit. Okay, so now we're gonna make the white one. So the white one, we're gonna take cherry tomatoes, oregano, Parmesan cheese. All right, and we're gonna finish it with, we're gonna put a little bit of basil on it. We're gonna finish with basil, arugula, and prosciutto. So the cherry tomatoes, you wanna just, I'm gonna use a knife, but you can just squish them. It's a little bit of a big knife. Don't tell anybody I'm doing this because I get mad at the cooks when they do it. It's not the right knife for this thing. So you wanna just squish them sort of inside.
I see you're using solid pans. What is your opinion on using perforated pans?
You can. Usually the perforated pans are for when you put them on a stone or you put it in a wood burning oven so that it gets some of that flavor. To be honest, I mean, you want a little bit of the flour, you want a little bit of the roast. I prefer the solid pan. Like I said, unless there's something that you're putting on a coals or something like that, but I mean, either way, I don't think you can go wrong. I just think it's a little less messy too. But I never really thought of it, to be honest. Oh, I'm gonna wash the tomatoes. So you want to squish them a little bit? Okay. Now keep in mind the dough itself is quite salty. So when we add the salt to this, you want to make sure that we don't add too much. Right, so I don't know. Usually the other thing is with pizzas or pastas or anything in general, you try to put too much on. So I don't know if anybody remembers Prego de la Piazza, the restaurant that was sort of where the Four Seasons was in Yorkville. When I first started cooking way back when, I was working at a place, actually, I was working at a place that we would make a few pizzas, and I was very young. And the owner came in, Michael Carnevale was his name. And I guess he had a pizza, and I guess we put too much cheese and too many things on it. So he's like, comes right up to the kitchen, it was an open kitchen, and we didn't know who he was. So he tells me, he looks at me, like in that sort of like, very sort of, no expression face, and says, cheese is the enemy of pizza. So he's all he said, and then he went back to sit down. So we're like, who is this guy? Anyway, he was Michael Carnival. He didn't like the pizza. I mean, I guess he didn't like the pizza, but he must have liked the food because 2 years later he offered me a job. So I don't know. I never went to work for him. That's another story. But anyway, so cheese is the enemy of pizza. That's what he said. So you don't have to put too much. So we got olive oil, we got cherry tomatoes. We're gonna put some oregano. Okay, and then we're gonna put on the white pizza. You can put parm. So the parm, I'm gonna grab my microplane. And if this was taped, this is when you sort of slow down and weird music would play and we get a slow shot of the cheese going onto the pizza. So anyway, so you want to put, I like parm, so I'm going to put a lot on it.
I have a pizza stone. Do I need to do anything differently with oven temperature?
The pizza stone, no, a hot oven, especially for pizza, is always a good way to go. I would say you don't put it on the tray though, you put it right on the stone. So you won't need the trays, you put it right on the stone, you get a better crust. You maybe don't get as hot, but you probably still would need it 475, 500. Okay, so cheese, oregano, a little bit of salt, I'm gonna put a little bit of pepper, tomatoes, that's fantastic as it is. I don't want to sound like Mr. Dolce Vita there, where everything he makes is great, but it does look fantastic. So while we're going to fill this in, I'm going to check on the other pizzas. Okay, so the other pizzas are almost ready for the second phase of it. So for the second phase of it, we're going to make one just sort of, no messing around. We're going to use bocconini cheese, wherever I put them. We're going to put fresh basil, a little pepper, and a little olive oil. And that's it, and the sauce. That's all we're going to do on that one. Right? Which is probably the best way to eat, to be honest. The best way to eat the pizza. Like, I would have to say so myself. Like, every once in a while, it's nice to try something different. But, you know, especially if you're in a rush or whatever, or you go to, you know, you can't decide, the best way to eat it is just a straight up fresh bocconcini or mozzarella, fresh basil, tomato. One thing I can't do is no cheese. So tomato sauce with no cheese, I don't know who eats that. Okay, so we're gonna take a look at the pizzas again.
How do you know when the tomato pizzas are ready to come out of the oven?
Okay,
To
so
put toppings on.
essentially, this is how we do our pizzas, even here for like weddings. So and at home. So essentially, because we don't have a stove, the temperature of the oven, even at 500 degrees, is not hot enough. So you want to cook it 3/4 or almost all the way. So you're basically taking it out when the crust is nice and the color on the bottom is nice. Some of the tomato might evaporate, so you put a little bit more, and then you put the cheese. Then you're going to put it in the oven just for like 2 minutes, so the cheese melts. What you don't want is put the cheese and the toppings on at the beginning, unless for some reason like you want to put maybe onions, so you want to caramelize them in the oven. But if you don't want to put the cheese at the beginning with the sauce, because what happens is the cheese sort of crusts over, it gets really hard, and you don't want that. You want the cheese just to melt. So you want a nice crispy crust, nice and moist, like nice amount of tomato sauce, and the cheese just sort of melted, very delicate. You don't want it sort of to crust over, and that's what you look for. I would say another minute. So if anybody has any other questions, the mushrooms we're using, we're going to use Sumiji mushrooms. They don't have the best flavor. It's what I could find this morning. I mean, even like a cremini would be ideal. Those have the most flavor. But the Sumijis will be sort of a little fancier, but they'll be good. We're going to put cremini mushrooms and Italian sausage on the second one. We're also going to finish the white one with a bit of prosciutto and arugula. So then we'll cut it up. We'll get. I wish you could be here. It smells fantastic. I don't want to seem like you know, like it's fantastic, but it is. It smells good.
Marion says the suspense is killing me.
Oh, I know. That means okay, so suspense. So here we go. So the pizzas are coming out. You can see they have a nice crust. We're going to have to deliver one special delivery for Mary. All right, so we're not going to do the white ones. We're going to get rid of these. So you can see it has a good amount of tomato sauce still on it. You can also see, you can see that it has a nice sort of crust on it. It could go a little bit more, but that means you'd be waiting for me. So I like a lot of tomato sauce, especially when it's fresh. All right, you want to put a little bit more of that. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to put the bocconcini. We're going to do the traditional one first. Just a little bit of bocconcini. So usually it always seems like they don't put enough. So we're going to do the same thing. Actually, we're going to put a little bit more. It's fine. And then you're going to put a little salt on that, on the cheese. Okay, and then you're going to put some fresh basil. Remember, like, these pizzas are going to look fantastic. They're going to taste fantastic. And essentially, I know this is a professional kitchen, but essentially I make the same thing at home, and I just have a common stove. Like, it's something that's so easy, and you don't need a crazy oven. So you're going to put some olive oil. Right? And we're going to get a little pepper, just a little pepper. All right, we're going to put that back in the oven. All right. We really got to get that door fixed. But anyway, so we have the other one. We put tomato sauce on. So what are we going to put first? Mozzarella, freshly shredded. The other stuff that's pre-shredded just doesn't melt the same. Not that I've ever used it, but I've seen it, right? And again, you don't want to put too much. So like even like that doesn't look like a lot, but it ends up being a lot once it melts. And that's probably a little bit too much than they normally would put. Cheese always first. Always put cheese first. sausage, mushrooms, all right, a little salt, okay, and then a little olive oil. A lot of olive oil. You can even brush the corner, like if you like, you can even brush the corners. All right, so that's ready. Hey, yeah, that's it. Oh, gonna put a little fresh basil. It's amazing how I found such nice basils in the market today. It's amazing. All right, so a little fresh basil. Okay, so you can see, I don't know if you can see this focaccia pizza. Looks really good. Could have rose a bit more. So maybe I did something when I needed, or I didn't let it rest enough. But nice, beautiful color. All right, so we're gonna add some prosciutto. You wanna add it with the fat, like right at the sort of beginning. Right when it's warm, sort of melt the prosciutto a little bit. All right, you don't wanna add too. You don't want to go crazy on it. Maybe just a little bit more. I think it's good. And then we're going to add some fresh basil at the end here. And then some arugula. Sometimes we'll add the arugula, let it cool a little bit, but we'll add it now. And this arugula is also really nice. It's a nice thin one. If you're buying arugula, you want to look for the nice thin one. All right. So I don't know if you see that. So I'm going to cut it. I'm going to try it. I'm just going to bring the board closer to you guys.
I have a question about mushrooms.
Yeah.
When I put mushroom in the pizza, it makes it watery. How do I avoid that?
That's tough too, because some mushrooms will do that and some won't. You need to grab a really fresh mushroom, ideally a cremini. If you're constantly having that problem, what I would recommend is you cook off the mushrooms a little bit, or you use the sumijis because they won't have any water. But I have that quite a bit as well. The other thing you can do is put it in at the beginning. So when I showed you when to put the sauce, put the mushrooms as well, and they'll sort of cook out a little bit, and they'll evaporate on the top of your oven. If you put it on the top of your oven, it'll sort of dry out the mushrooms a little bit. But make sure the mushroom is very fresh, and ideally like a cremini or even a portobello. Sometimes, I mean, the white ones are pretty much the same, but sometimes I'll have that problem. So we have this pizza right here. I don't know if you can take a look. Unfortunately, I have to try it. It's something that, you know, I wish you guys can try it. But
unfortunately or fortunately?
you know, I have to sacrifice for the team. So we're going to pull a Lydia. So she always tries her things, and everything always tastes amazing, if you notice. Oh. That's actually really good. It actually needs a little bit more salt on top, but it's always easier to put more salt than it would be to take the salt off. So we're just going to put this on the other platter. I'm going to flip our platter over because I did that and I just put it on there. Right. So we flip that over. Now the other pizza should be ready.
I have a question about knives. What's the best way to sharpen your knives? How do you best maintain sharp knives?
I found over the years, to be totally honest, the best way to sharpen your knives is to get one of the apprentices to do it, to be honest. Because I'm not really liking sharpening my knives because it takes so long and it's so complicated. But at home, when I don't have apprentices, I'll just take a steel. I don't have a steel, but I'll show you next week. So you just have a steel. For the most part, unless you're using your knives like 20 hours a day, you just need to run it against the steel, and that will bring the edge back for the most part, if the knife is of good quality. If it's not of good quality, it gets complicated because there's different stones. You would have to buy proper stones. And there's different grades, like sandpaper. So you start with the coarse sandpaper, and then you have to go finer, finer, finer. Usually you do two steps for sure, 2 stones for sure. 3 stones if you really want to do it well. And that I don't have patience for. So usually I'll ask somebody to do it, or I'll take it to one of the knife shops. Anyway, you can see sort of the pizzas, right? Kind of golden. This one could have been out a little earlier. The mushroom one is pretty perfect. And we're gonna, I'm gonna cut them, but I'm not gonna eat them. I'm gonna share them. But essentially, if you're making that at home and you have guests, you can't really go wrong. And then we'll do this one. You can sort of hear the crunch on them, right? And this one here has quite a bit of tomato sauce. But you can, like I said, you can always add a little less. Maybe we'll take some of these. Maybe we'll divide it up so it's even. So there you go. I don't know if that picture looks good or not. So there you go. There's pizza at home. And once you eat this pizza, it's going to be hard to go back to any sort of regular dough. And it's not that hard. And like I said, once the dough, I'm going to show you how to roll the balls. So we're going to get rid of this. We'll quickly do it, right? We'll quickly do it. So we'll just put this here and we'll smell it.
Madeline says she's coming over.
Yeah, we'll do a curbside pizza pickup. The windows are here, George Windows. Just knock on the window and make you a pizza. Okay, so here's the dough. It's getting a little messy, but I don't want to walk away from the camera. All right, so you take it, right, and we're going to just flip it onto the board. Is that too close? Yeah, maybe. Okay, so we're going to flip it onto the board. We have a bench cutter. Right, and you're just going to cut it. Now, if you look at the guys, if you look at the pizza makers on YouTube and stuff, or if you go to a pizza shop, they'll roll this like so. They'll roll this like this, and they'll just sort of take it, and they'll somehow cut it, right, and then form the ball. But they'll do it like, they'll twist it and they'll roll it at the same time. It's crazy. So, I mean, when you're making like that many pizzas a day, but for us, non-everyday pizza makers, we'll do it like on the top. So what you do is you take it, you weigh it at 240 grams. It can be off a little bit, that's fine. And then you sort of take it and you pinch it around to make a ball. So you take it, you pinch it around, you pinch it around. This is actually not that hard to do. Take it around. Right? And then until you get a nice round shape. And then when you get a nice round shape, you put it on your board. No flour. The dough is so nice, and it has so much gluten in it, and it's so nice, it's not going to stick. If it's sticking, then it probably means it's too wet. So there you go. You take that. Then you take flour and a tray with parchment. We'll just grab So we'll just grab one of these. So you put a little bit of parchment on top of it. And obviously you have a bigger tray. All right, you can put a little flour, roll it in flour, put it on the tray. And you can get, so if you have a half tray like mine, you want to don't put more than 6 on it, so just in case it expands a little bit more. And this needs a little bit more time to rest, which is why usually it sort of settles a little bit. Need a little bit more time to rest. But you put no more than 6, so that way they don't get too overcrowded. And you should be able to get 10. 10 in total at 240 grams. And that concludes our lesson of pizza. So anybody have any questions? Thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully we broke another record. If we didn't break another record, you should tell all your Verity friends that we need to get this up to 1,000 people. 1,000. That's what I
All
want
the
to see.
members.
I don't do social media, and I don't do too many videos. You won't find me anywhere. You won't even find me on LinkedIn. People keep sending me friend requests because someone in the office decided to set up a page for me. I don't use it, so this is where you're gonna find me, and it's an exclusive view for you guys. So please tell everybody, and let's make next time even more successful.
So we're gonna post this up on the member site on Monday, and we'll have all the ingredients that Chef used as well.
So the recipe is going to be, it's done. I submitted it. It's going to be up on Monday. And so you guys have all the recipes, and you'll have time, hopefully, and you should try it. And like I said, I mean, you get 10, you make 4 pizza, and then maybe, the next 4 you can make flatbread on your barbecue with whatever grilled meat you're making.
And keep sending us your suggestions and recommendations.
That's my little voice, also known as Alethea, and she wants you to send us any recommendations that you might have.
Yes.
All right, so thanks very much, and have a great day.
We'll see you next Friday, everybody.
Just in time for pizza.